Hello everyone, I am Nowrin and I was responsible for developing the front-end of our project titled AI-driven Smart Transport Safety System. My job was to design inter-user interface UI design React.js along with HTML, CSS and JavaScript. I made sure the design is clear and responsible, user-friendly and function across all devices. Project structure and technology usage our front-end is built with React. In this part, I will terminal create SRC. CSS for styling and JavaScript for interactive, and React hook like use state and use effect for dynamic behavior. For using React, I have to create terminal and environment for my React environment in terminal. That's why each sector and subsector has its own component and CSS file clean separations. Case sections in my file, I have to use hero sections. This is landing section, which is background images and bold title and call to action button and start with background overlooking and using CSS and style and then feature sections. Feature sections, sector and subsector. I designed a great system that displays click card for each sector like emergency, surveillance, AI, intellect, and etc. When a sector is clicked, its subsector appears dynamically using grid state. Like Apple section describe the aim and motivation and benefit our system. Google integrations. Live Map. In Google Map, I use Live Map. I embedded Google Map APIs to show to real location. Example on backend part would be make it dynamic, which shows my learning friend Shuha. It helps user or security forces sees vehicles positions. Login and profile section. The login pages includes input and files and basic validations and connected with backend using wait and post record. In login sections also use backend part. Another and almost every reactor can create login section and sign up sections. Then my footer sections. Footer sections contain social media icon and contact info copyright. Code integrations and coordinated. I collaborate with backend team my friend Momo to ensure data is passed correctly through APIs. The login system, real-time features, and dynamic roles all are connected back in the database. I also helped align the design to secure emergency modules. And conclusions, in short, my contribution focused I designed to responsive modern user interface React, HTML, and CSS, creating login map section, profile section, and feature sections. Then I shows my sections when I click login. My front page started, which is feature sections, map sections, performance sections. In this section, create works, backend, incident detected, started every 5 seconds. Testimonial sections, public says, contact sections, how people will contact us. Thank you, everyone. Then start backend part, my friend Momo.
Hello everyone, I am Momo and in my AI-driven smart transport safety system project, my responsibility was to develop the backend using Python with Flask. The backend acts as the bridge between the frontend and the database, ensuring the data flows securely and efficiently between the user interface and stored recorded. My role involved creating the RESTful API endpoint, setting up the Flask server, handling request routing, and managing how different parts of the system like emergency alert, surveillance data, and authentication interact with the database. Let's go step by step through the main component of the backend code. Here I set up the Flask server and connect the three main root file using Blueprint. This allows us to modularize our API code. This script handles the connection with the SQLite database and initialize with it with schema definition. This route accepts POST request to log emergency report it extract data from the request, save it into database and return to success email message. This simple login route verifies a username and password against stored visual in the database. This route retrieves surveillance logs from the database and returns them to JSON format. To sum up my back-end implementation, connect the UI to a Reboot SQLite database, manage user authentication, logs emergency event and features surveillance data. The REST API I created are structured, scalable, and ready to connection to the front-end application. Thank you for listening. If you have any question about the backend logic, I have been happy to answer. Next part, continue with Shuha.
Hello everyone, my name is Shuha and I am responsible for the backend development and database integration of our smart transport safety system project. So my main tasks included building the server-side logic using Python and Flask, creating REST APIs and connecting the backend with SQLite database to store and manage user data emergency reports and system logs. So in this slide, I'll take you through how I set up the backend using Flask, how each API works and what its purpose is, how the database is designed and integrated, how the front end communicates with the backend. So let's get started. Backend setup with Flask. We choose Flask as our backend framework because lightweight, simple to use, and perfectly for building REST APIs. First, I created a Python file called app.py, which serves as the main server file. I also installed Flask using pip with the command. In app.py, I initialized the Flask application like this. So we also created a helper function to connect to the SQLite database. This function is called whenever we need to query the database. Part 2, user authentication API. One of the key features of our system is user authentication. We allow users to log in with their username and password. To do that, I created a login endpoint that accepts post requests. Okay. Then it receives a JSON request with username and password. It connects to the SQLite database. It queries the user's table to see if the username and password match. If a match is found, it returns a success message. Otherwise, it returns an error. The number 3 is emergency alert submission. Another important feature is that users can submit emergency reports such as fire, accidents, etc. This data is sent from the front end and stored in the emergency reports table in our database. And here's how it works. It receives a post request from the frontend with emergency data. It connects to the database and inserts the new alert to the emergency reports table. Finally, it confirms successful submission to the frontend. Database design. I used SQLite as our database engine because it is lightweight and doesn't require a separate server. Here are the 3 main tables I created: create table, teaser primary key, and etc. These tables help us keep track of users' submitted reports and logs from different system sectors, connecting front to backend. The React frontend communicates with the Flask backend using HTTP requests. For example, to submit an emergency alert, the frontend uses Axios. When this request reaches Flask, it receives the data via post. It stores the data in the SQLite database. It returns a success message that is shown on the front end. And now, in conclusion, I say I built the backend server using Flask. I created secure APIs for login and emergency report submission. I designed and connected an SQLite database to store all necessary information. Finally, I integrated the backend with the frontend so data flows smoothly. Thank you, everyone.